Hey, everybody, welcome to the official Do Good Better podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Kirby. And of course, we talk with people who are going to help our small and medium-sized nonprofit friends do good better. And I bet you're sitting at your desk right now, or you're listening to this on your headphones. And it's a couple weeks into the new year. Have you done anything yet? Trying to plan the plan for the sake of planning sakes, as we've always talked about, is fine. But you got to do something. And in the world of digital marketing and in the world of digital content, we're going to help you out today. So I brought on my brand new friend from, by the way, my Canadian brethren. Since we are here in Fargo, it's close enough for being brothers from across the border. David Pisarek, Wow Digital Inc. is with us today. Is going to talk to us a little bit about doing stuff, right? Executing things, and talking a little bit about our digital marketing today. David, welcome to the official Do Good Better podcast.
What an introduction. Thank you so much, Patrick. Hi, everybody. Happy New Year-ish, and welcome to the show. I hope that we have some great conversation.
I think it's going to be great today, and I love that our sort of pre-conversation involved getting it done or doing something. And I think a lot of the nonprofit world, as we've just come out of the end of the year, and now we're into, again, the budget cycle never ends. Our task lists never end. It's an unforgiving schedule. And then we can get kind of caught up in just sort of tired, exhausted, how we're going to do this, and trying to overcomplicate rather than simplify, whether it's marketing, messaging, action plans, whatever. So I'm glad you're here today. We're going to talk about this. But first, as people are kind of tuning into iTunes or they're scrolling through YouTube and they're finding this episode, they're like, yes, I need this motivation today. I need to figure out how to execute. They need to know a little bit about you. So give us a 5,000-foot view on who you are, what you do, how you got here, and why we're chatting today.
Yeah, so really, I mean, my entire life, I've been involved in nonprofits in one way or another, whether it was volunteering time in youth groups or, I worked in nonprofits for about 16 years as well. And for the last 5 years, I started Wow Digital, 5.5 years, started Wow Digital, and we focus on nonprofits, digital marketing, website, and branding. So that's really kind of high level. Over the last 5 years, we've done over 240 projects for, hundreds of clients.
If you're looking at your average nonprofit that either approaches you or you find on the interwebs, what's the most glaring, most common sort of, boy, if you just changed this issue that you're finding in digital marketing, digital content across the nonprofit landscape?
Well, I think there's a couple. The first is making your contact information really easy to find. You'd be surprised how often you would come across a website and be like, how do I get in touch with them? How can I even make a donation? There should be a really clear call to action available at the top of the site. Quite often people put it in their navigation, just a button that says donate or participate or volunteer or whatever it is that you want to drive attention to. And then also, like I mentioned, contact information, making it easy, having a web form. I know a lot of people are a little bit hesitant with putting emails up on their websites because of bots that go around, and it'll just add a ton of spam, which is one more thing that you would need to deal with in your everyday work. So having a quick and easy contact form would be really great and helpful.
And I think a lot of the nonprofits who actually sort of think about marketing and who am I actually having this message to begin with the conversation of like, well, I don't have anybody to email, or I don't have anybody to have to contact. Well, that's why you're going to want a form on your front page, right? I mean, this is how do we get a hold of you, or can I be interested in putting you on our mailing list? That's something that you want to ask right away. So there's two schools of thought. One, it's right when you log in or right when you close out. Can you talk a little bit about kind of your front loading? Hey, here's some information, click here for some more details, and sort of an exit box. And I'll let you explain this because you're probably a lot smarter in the verbiage of digital marketing. But when you close out, hey, can you get, or would you like to be on your email list, whatever, as you exit out? And how complicated is this?
Yeah, so there's a number of ways that you can engage your audience when they come to your website. Quite often, you'll probably find maybe about, if hopefully you have analytics installed on your website. If you don't, go to Google Analytics, get a free code, pop it in your site. But you'll probably find that about 40%, 40% of traffic is actually going to your homepage. Google wants to drive people to the content that they're actually looking for. So whatever you're doing, it's important to make sure that it filters through your entire website. You can't just have something only on the homepage. Chances are that people are not going there. People are not going to, like yournonprofit.com most of the time. Only people who are familiar with your organization are doing that. So that's something that you need to keep in the back of your mind as you're figuring out how you want to plan your website or reorganize your website, if that's in your plans to do. So in terms of engaging, a lot of people find pop-ups a little bit annoying, but there's ways around that. And there's a number of simple ways that you can kind of work with that. You can put a graphic on your site that when you click on it, then it will open the pop-up. And you can have, as you mentioned, exit pop-ups. So when the mouse moves out of the browser window or up to a different tab, it'll kind of create an overlay on the page saying, hey, do you want to sign up for our marketing list of whatever kind? You should never say marketing list. Like, do you want our newsletter? Do you want updates from us? That type of thing. And try to think about it from the end user's perspective, the what is in it for me perspective.
I love that. And maybe I think as nonprofits, you're always thinking about what do other people want, rather than thinking about like, how do I interact with people on the internet, right? So what turns me off from a website? What is annoying about things that I go onto the website for? That's a really good place to start. And then how do you build an authentic message around things that don't annoy you or that don't annoy your organization? And that's where you might be able to start sort of how you're going to advertise or how you're going to market or how you're going to interact with people who just jump on a website, regardless of whatever page they land on. Am I way off base on that?
No, not at all. I think you're spot on with that. People need to not do things that annoy them on their own website, right? There's some really easy things that you can do to add some additional engagement. You can add a chat bot to your website, so you can programmatically set something up relatively easy. We're talking maybe an hour tops, where you can drive people to the right department at your organization if they're looking for a program or service. If they're interested in signing up for your newsletter, you can do that. If they want to volunteer, you can drive them over to a volunteer application form. If you're a larger organization and you have career opportunities, job openings, that type of thing, you can drive people that way. So there's a number of opportunities to leverage some of these kind of newer technologies. They've been around for a little while, but nonprofits tend to kind of lag a little bit in terms of integrating these type of functionality.
One of the things that I really like, and that I don't find too annoying, is that if you've got a blog, you've got something else, it's like almost in the content itself are calls to action, right? So they're either a photo or a video or some sort of thing within, and it looks like you meant to put it there because you were very purposeful, but it's a call to action within it, right? A little photo or a video or a link or something that says, hey, you're liking this, you're already paragraph 2 down. Hey, here's more information, click here, right? So it doesn't seem to be overwhelmingly obvious that you're trying to gain some sort of interactions with the individuals who are reading this, but it's a really easy and sort of simple way to do that. Okay, so here's a question though, right? So we talked about chat boxes and blogs and forms and pop-ups and all these kind of things for the website. To the average nonprofiteer or the nonprofit leader in a small shop, 1, 2, 3 people, you're probably in charge of the website as well as you are all the finances and things. That's a lot of stuff to try to process in your own brain. And what we sort of kind of want to talk about is do something. Don't look at this as I can't do everything, which is like, hey, there's 15 different ways that you can drive traffic or drive ideas. The idea is do something and just sort of move the needle forward. Of all the things, of all the options that we just kind of walked through, pop-ups and blogs or whatever, what's the one big thing that if you're not doing outside of the call to action up at the top of the page, because that's got to be mandatory. You don't even stop this podcast, pause it, go put it up there first. Everybody does that right now. Outside of that, What's the one big thing that nonprofits should be doing that they might not be doing that they should take action for right now?
I love this question. And it's something that I talk quite a bit about in my webinar, is focusing on your content. It's a tried, true, tested method. Content is king. It's very much true. Google cares about your content. It's what's going to drive traffic to your website, and it doesn't have to be a lot. At Wow Digital, we run a content accelerator with a number of our clients where we plan out, it's maybe a couple of hours, but we plan out the entire year's worth of content, just topics. We write them down. I've got right here some Post-it notes, different colors for different platforms. So you might have an email piece that you want to send out on these days, right? And you just plan it out for the entire year. You don't have to write everything all up front. But what we found is by producing an article, let's say a blog, maybe 300, 350 words once a week, can increase your traffic around 500 to 510% over the course of 8 months. So we're talking unique organic web visitors that care about something regarding your cause. You need the content that you're producing needs to be empathetic and needs to drive and evoke an emotion with your audience about something that your organization does or cares about.
I love a couple of things that you just mentioned. One, this is a long game, not an instant solution to driving traffic and to getting your message out. If anybody is claiming that you see on the internet, I will be able to fix your bit in 24 hours or instant whatever gratification for like, you don't buy it. That's not what it is. This is a long game, the same way that you treat your donors, in the sense that you want to have a relationship with them for eternity, rather than just a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, thanks for visiting, here's $1, right? So you want to build this rapport with people who continuously come back to your website or blog or Facebook page or social media or whatever, because you're building great content and they feel like they are relatable. So number one, talk a little bit about the importance of thinking long-term like that, in so much that it's going to take 8 months to see that potential, 100, 200, 300, 400% return. And know that if you go to the gym, you work out once, you go and look in the mirror kind of bit, you're not going to see the results, right? But someday down in the future, you're going to. Please hammer this message home, because I think we need to figure out that, yes, you need to do something, and you need to do it continuously for a long time to see this benefit, and your patience is going to pay off.
Absolutely. And you're spot on with that. It's about the long game. And you don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to be like, oh my God, David said, we need to do an article a week. Where are we going to find the time? Don't start with that. Start with once a month, once every 6 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever it is that you do. As you said earlier, Patrick, doing something is better than not doing anything. Meetings for the sake of meetings, talking about doing something versus actually doing something isn't going to achieve anything, right? So spend the time, figure out, if you're Alzheimer's related, right? There's an Alzheimer's month. Plan out what you're going to do for that in advance, instead of, the day before going, uh-oh, we kind of forgot about this. We shouldn't have. And then you rush and panic and run around and try to sort it all out. Take a look at what you did last year. Rephrase some stuff, repurpose it, and try to refresh it and make it current and relevant for today's market.
But David, if I don't spend 6 months talking about it and planning it, it won't be perfect. And therefore, if it's not perfect, I can't post it. Therefore, I can never post anything.
That's a problem.
It can't be a problem
blunt about it.
It's not perfect in my messaging. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate this conversation, because perfection is the bane of my existence when it comes to getting stuff out the door. It's okay if you're spelling a word wrong. Okay, We all make mistakes. Everybody's given the grace to do all these kind of things. And I don't think you can worry about this. You're not going to produce content that's going to offend a bunch of people, right? You're not going to spend 2 hours writing something over the course of a week. And you're going to realize like, I shouldn't have said all those horribly racist things. Like, you're not going to do that. So it's okay to not have this perfected idealistic version of the content that you imagine it's supposed to be. Getting it done is way more important than perfecting everything in perpetuity.
If you find a mistake, go back and fix it. It's a website. You're not printing
1,000
annual reports and mailing them out to the world, right? It's your website. It's one of the great things. It's malleable. You can always go back in, you can make edits. It is important. One thing I wanted to, I guess, just touch on that you mentioned before is putting what I would call like an interstitial in the middle of your content. Always make sure that whenever you're asking anybody for anything, that it ties back to something. Spend the time, spend maybe a couple of days figuring out your digital marketing plan and your goals. All roads lead back to how you communicate with your audience, right? And the easiest way to do that is to grab their emails and push messages out to them. People like to couch surf, right? So they'll get something, they'll like something on Facebook. They might not interact or anything like that, but pushing email out to them is going to be your easiest way of getting your message across to them. You can't necessarily expect that they're going to come back to your website and read your article week after week or month after month and whatnot. So you need to really be pushing and reaching out to them. So having something in the middle of your content saying, hey, download this PDF checklist of how you need to improve your memory, something like that. A one pager, something really quick and easy, and get them to provide you their email address. It's a lead magnet in the marketing world.
Two things there too, which I think I want to get the lead magnet piece out of the way. First of all, but we're going to get back to that. But the other thing too is people read your stuff and they don't necessarily interact with it. I love this as a reminder, is that think about what you read on the internet or what you read. If you're reading an article on a news thing, you're not going to the bottom of the news thing, liking it, sharing it, etc. But you're reading it, you're absorbing it. So there are a ton of people out there who are reading and interacting with your stuff. They might not purposely like, share, or comment on it, but they're reading it. And I think as an entrepreneur, and you probably find this as well too, you put out this really wonderful piece of content and only like a handful of people like it. You're like, what the hell? Like that was great stuff. They're reading it though. There's a lot of people who are absorbing that information, who are associating you with the expert in the field, and they're associating you with like, that was great, that was funny, that was great. They're not liking it, but they're reading it. So make sure that you know that there's eyeballs on what you're doing in whatever form that is. Trust me, they're looking at it. They might not interact. It's great. The other thing too is a checklist or an ebook or something. That is an exhausting mental hurdle to get over if you're a small nonprofit or you're a small business, to be fair. Is this has to be the world's greatest ebook, greatest checklist, well-designed piece of material you've ever done in your entire life. Am I wrong? Does it have to be the world's greatest put together digital piece of all time? Or does it have to be good content and usable?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it needs to be something that somebody will find value from, right? It needs to be something they can connect with and go, oh yeah, you know what? I never thought of doing this or doing that or thinking about something in this way. And it honestly, it doesn't matter if you're a nonprofit or a for-profit, it's the same thing. And nonprofits need to think of themselves as a business. And yeah, you might be in it for the love of it and you really care about it. At the end of the day, if you're not raising money to support your cause, then you're not doing your community any justice because you can't support them.
It's so true. Yeah, it's just I love this conversation because I think it'll get people off of their eternal planning process and get them into the doing action, which is also most important. One of the things I did want to talk to you about too, and this is kind of where I'm going to lean on your expertise for a little bit, is I think we're always looking for, as we're planning and as we're executing, and we're moving parts in real time, right? So your plan doesn't have to be in stone, right? You can adjust according. This is a fluid marketing plan rather than I'm etching this in stone. This cannot be moved and I cannot do anything. as the news, as you know, as the news changes, as environments change, as economies change, you got to change with it. So this is a framework, not necessarily something you're stuck with for all times. But in that, we're looking for, what are some of the trends that you're seeing in the digital marketing space, or things that we should be aware of, just to sort of make sure that at least we think about it or we've heard it, so that we can react to it in real time when it occurs, or things that we see in our own communities, because it might start on the coasts first and it works our way through to flyover country here in North Dakota. But what are you seeing from a trend standpoint in the digital marketing space?
One question. So from the digital marketing space, it's a matter of keeping the message simple, making sure that you're able to provide a direct, easy to understand way for your audience to understand what it is that you do. So if you're doing something really clinical, you know, toning down the wording and the messaging for your general public, and having maybe a little bit different messaging for maybe the scientific community or government, and making sure that you're connecting with your audience at the level that they'll understand and comprehend without overwhelming them. So it's important to make sure that, just to sum that up, it's important to make sure that you're providing content at the level of your audience. So that's kind of the first and foremost. The second thing is, I would pay attention to the digital IT world in terms of what's happening there. There was this huge blow up, you know, middle of 2021 with NFTs. You know, how does that work for nonprofits? Can nonprofits create NFTs or work with designers and artists to then auction them off to raise capital or funding or whatnot for? So there's a lot of things that are happening in the marketplace that it's worth looking at. But the first and foremost is you need to understand who your audience is and where they hang out and what they care about. So if your audience is people, let's say in their 50s and 60s, you know, they're more in the Facebook space, right? So you might want to try building a community of some kind there to talk about whatever it is that you're talking about. End of the day, you need to go after your audience, know where they are, and connect with them in those platforms.
Here's a question that you're going to get asked, or that people are probably thinking about in their brains. How do you know what your audience wants?
So, you know, you need to make sure that you know very clearly who your audience is. And there's two things to look at. One is demographics, right? So where are they located? How much do they make? Do they have families? That kind of thing. The other thing that a lot of people don't think about is psychographics. And psychographics are their state of mind. So what are their beliefs? What do they do for fun? How do they spend their time? What are their hobbies? That type of thing. And by combining the demographics and the psychographics, you'll be able to create what I call an avatar, a persona for that user group, right? And then knowing that information, you'll be able to identify where those people go, where they hang out. And if you don't know, connect with a digital marketing agency or any marketing agency and find out. Go into Google and type, you know, 50 and 60-year-olds in Dakota interests, right? And see what comes up. And you'll be able to find quite a bit of statistics and details about what they do and how they hang out and where they go.
You know, the other interesting thing is that is exactly the type of information that you need to raise money, right? You need to position yourself as like, who are the individuals with the most amount of revenue that you could bring into your organization. Well, figure it out, right? You don't want to start, you know, asking people who have zero money for money. That seems to be ridiculous. And knowing who your audience is. Here's a simple way to do it. Ask them. Send out a survey. My God in heaven, it's that easy of like, hey, what do you like? What do you not like? What are you concerned about? What do you know about us? Like, you'll get the information back. And in fact, it'll save you a lot of trouble on guessing by just sending something out. And they're going to just like, oh, yeah, I like this. And here's another thing. When they interact with you, they know that you can rely on them to be interacting with you on something else because they took the time to fill out a survey. Well, who does that? People who love your organization or people who are curious about it. So there's a lot of different ways. I think, again, it goes back to what you just said, which is stop over complicating your message. Stop overcomplicating what you're doing from your marketing standpoint. Just write authentically, be passionate about whatever project that you're working on, and just be genuinely interesting, and be self-aware about, like, are you being too clinical? Yes, stop it. Do something else. Are you being too aloof or philosophical? Stop it. Go do something else. Be simple. Know your audience is great. And the other two is just be self-aware. What would you like to read? How would you engage? Look at the stuff that you're clicking on, and then look at you as a demographic yourself, right? 42-year-old white dude from North Dakota. What on earth am I clicking on? All right. Am I trying to attract that type of individual to my nonprofit? Great. Mimic it. And then you don't have to think about content that much, right? You're just like actually giving away the trade secret of who you want to do, because you're just looking at yourself. I think it's a lot easier.
I think there's three things there that I want to talk about. The first is you need to address your why. Why is it that you do what you do, and why should anybody care about it? And use that as your like guiding star, so to speak, in terms of how you need to position yourself, right? And being able to connect with people. The second thing I want to talk about is the Silver Tsunami that's coming. Right, there's a lot of money. There's billions and billions of dollars that are out there just in the United States alone, forgetting about Canada or the other, G7, G8 countries. It doesn't really matter. Wherever you are, there's a lot of money sitting with the older generations. And what you need to do is start connecting with the younger generations now, because that money is going to be passed down to them. Connect with the older generations now, if you're not already, and see if there's a way that you can. It's a little bit difficult, sometimes an awkward conversation, but being part of estate planning as an organization and having funds or trusts or bonds or anything like that, anything that can come to your organization is better than nothing. And the third thing that I wanted to mention has totally escaped my mind. So there you go.
We've given so much information today that it's exploding my brain, and I think it is. But again, I love this, going back to simplicity, thinking about what you want, really laser focusing in on who you are as an organization and what on earth are you trying to accomplish in the first place. If you can answer those two questions, every content piece is easily developed, because it goes back to that, again, that North Star, who you are, why you do it, and what made you get involved in the first place. If it connects there, you're totally golden. And again, don't think about it. You already invested a lot of time. And I think this is where a lot of nonprofits get stuck too, is there's this imposter syndrome that I must clearly not understand who I am or what I do. There's much more better experts. No, there's not. You're the one in the community doing the groundwork, doing the boots on the ground, helping the community build better relationships. Whatever you're doing, you're the expert. And it's walking that line of confidence, going, I know what I'm talking about. People trust my judgments. They are looking for advice. They're looking for information. I'm the one to give it to you just right. And are there any exercises as far as content goes where, instead of getting stuck in trying to perfect these things, is there any exercises that you found to be beneficial if you're just in this whole, like, I can't write or I can't create or I can't do anything? How do you jump out of that to maybe spark some ideas or spark some creativity in your own nonprofit?
So the best thing that we've done with our clients is give them a time limit. So how many Post-it notes, right, can they write a topic on in a minute? Anything that comes to mind. It doesn't really matter whether it's relevant or not relevant. You can crumple them up and throw them in the recycle later. It doesn't really matter. But give yourself a small, like 1 by 2 inch paper, and just write down as many as you can, as fast as you can in a minute. If that's too short, wait another 10 minutes, do it again. Wait another 10 minutes, do it again. And you're going to find some really good gems that come out from that. And then what you can do is you can start creating categories around that. Like, are these questions that people are interested in? Is this about what we did last year? Is this what our upcoming events are about? Things like that. And then once you've kind of categorized them, then you can start planning them out for the year and going, okay, in January, we're going to do this. In February, this. You could take the Post-it notes, put them on a piece of paper. You can type them up in Word or Excel or Google Doc or whatever. It doesn't really matter. You can make a mural board with them. It makes no difference what the technology is, whether it's old school or new school. Put them in there and then use them through the year. And if you don't use one in January, move that to March or April or May or whenever, right? A good idea is a good idea. And if you don't use it this year, great. Use that next year. Don't throw it out.
I literally just opened up a folder yesterday. This is, I honestly God's truth, where I've got a list of the ideas that I just want to write about or do or something, whatever. I got to put it in a folder. It says content for later, writing later. And it's just a whole folder of it. So if I ever get bored or whatever, I just open it up and go, I'll write about that today. Super easy thing to do. And then when you're always thinking or you're coming up with ideas, text yourself that idea, throw it in the folder, and then poof, at least you got something in the carry. If you're a nonprofit, you're probably going, I would like David's perspective on a whole bunch of things. I would like to know a little bit more about Wow Digital. How on earth do people get a hold of you so they can ask all of those awesome questions?
Yeah, so the easiest thing to do is to go to wowdigital.com. On there, I have a link. You can book a free consult with me, not a problem at all. If you want to get me directly immediately, shoot over an email to david@wowdigital.com. And anybody that does want to get in touch with me directly, I have an ebook that I can send you as well, which is 3 simple words that you can use to increase your donations by 20%. So, run this through. It's a quick ebook. It's I don't know, 8-9 pages, something like that. But it's science backed and psychology backed. So using the words in there, you'll be able to increase your donations.
I love it. We'll link all of those in the show notes. So get your butts in. To finish this podcast, go down and click on both Wow Digital's website and go download the ebook and get a hold of David. So appreciate your time. I'm so glad that we added this conversation at the beginning of the year so we can kick off the season right by getting off your butts and doing something and using all the awesome, do something and using all these amazing tips and tricks that you shared with us today. So I cannot appreciate you enough for the time here on the official Do Good Better podcast.